Sylvia darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm doing another book haul. This is for the months of January, February, and March of 2018, but excluding Comic-Con, because that was a separate book haul because I got just so much stuff at Comic-Con. And this video is only going to be books that I got during those months because I got so much stuff because I kept putting off making this video. And also I was pulling through my bookshelves and I'm like, oh, I forgot I actually bought all these books. I thought this was going to be a smaller list than it was until I actually looked at what I got. I forgot I bought stuff, guys. So the first book that I really want to talk about is Wires and Nerve Volume 2, Gone Rogue. This is a Lunar Chronicles graphic novel. It has writing by Marissa Meyer and art by Stephen Gilpin. I've already reviewed this book, so I'll post the link to the review in the description below. But basically, it's everything I want from the Lunar Chronicles. I love the fact that it's a graphic novel and has these really cool scenes, like getting to see all of the crew back together, and also getting to actually see the crew. Most of this book revolves around the wolf mutant hybrids trying to get Cinder to correct their mutations, which she can't do, but they are convinced that she can, and so they are coming up with all these complicated plots to try to force her hand, and it gets a little bit dicey at times. So, loving this. Also, if you haven't read the Lunar Chronicles, I highly recommend that. I love the series so much. They're a dystopian fairy tale retelling set in the future with mutants and plagues and fighting. I love it so much. I can't even properly describe the series, but I am so excited. The second major book that I got this time was Tess of the Road by Rachel Hartman. This one exists within the same world as Seraphina, Shadow Scale, and the microcomics of Amy Unbounded, all of which I really love. Well, I really, really love Seraphina and Amy Unbounded. I'm sort of okay with Shadow Scale, which is one of the reasons why I haven't just immediately dug into this book, is that Shadow Scale was not my favorite, and so I'm a little apprehensive about this one, especially since the book blurb is kind of vague. Apparently, Tess doesn't want to live up to her parents' expectations, and they want to send her to a nunnery, and she's not having it, so she dresses up as a guy and runs away. And that's about all I know about the plot of this book. So, I wish I knew more about what was going to happen. That might entice me to read it more. I don't know if you guys can see this. This one book is particularly dark. But I also got books 2 and 3 in The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Beddor. Book 2 is Seeing Red. Book 3 is Archenemy. And I actually haven't read this series yet. I have book 1, Looking Glass Wars. I just haven't gotten to it yet. However, I read the prequels, the graphic novels for Hatter M and Hatter Madigan Ghost in the Hat Box. Those are amazing, so I'm hoping that this series is also amazing. This is a fantasy war series that takes place in Wonderland. So we have the Red Queen, who has been just, I guess, brutally ruling Wonderland. And Princess Alice has been in exile, and she returns to Wonderland to regain her throne. I'm guessing things aren't that easy because it's a 3-book trilogy. I really love this version of Wonderland from what I've seen from the prequels, so I am hoping that the rest of the series is good. And then we have my additions to my Doctor Who collection, which really does take this up to 2.5 shelves of Doctor Who books now. So these first 5 are kind of shorter books, or maybe it's just the way that they're printed, because they're running about 200 pages each. And they all seem to focus on the 11th Doctor. Okay, so the first one is Extra Time by Richard Dungworth, and I'm just going to read the book blurbs. The 11th Doctor and his friends head to the 1966 World Cup final, where the Doctor and Amy discover that the Time Lord isn't the only alien visiting Wembley Stadium. Rory finds himself playing a crucial role in the historic England versus West Germany football match. I know nothing about this particular match, but I love football/soccer, so also it's Doctor Who. Alright, there's also System Wipe by Ollie Smith. The Doctor finds himself trapped in the virtual world of Paralife. As the Doctor tries to save the inhabitants from being destroyed by a deadly virus, Amy and Rory must fight to keep his body in the real world, safe from the mysterious entity known as Legacy. Not exactly the one that is pulling me to it the closest, but it's a little bit intriguing. And I love the 11th Doctor. The Good, the Bad, and the Alien by Colin Brake. The 11th Doctor treats Rory to a trip to the Wild West when the TARDIS crew finds a town full of sleeping people and a gang of menacing outlaws intent on robbing the local bank. But as soon as it becomes clear that Amy, Rory, and the Doctor are not the only visitors to Mason City, Nevada, ... Yes, more Western adventures with the Doctor, Amy, and Rory. How can you not want to read this book? I'm actually kind of excited about this one. There's also Underwater War by Richard Dinnick. The 11th Doctor and his companions are on board the Cosmic Rover, a spaceship orbiting the Earth planet Hydron. Joining the crew, they journey underwater on a scientific exploration, but nothing is as it seems on the high-tech submarine. When a virus infects the crew, the Doctor discovers the ship is hiding a dangerous secret. I'm actually not a huge fan of plague-type, virus-type stories or submarines, so this one's kind of the bottom of my list. But also, I love Doctor Who, so that's why I bought it. Basically, whenever I find a new Doctor Who story, it becomes an auto-read. So. And the last one is Terrible Lizards by Jonathan Green. The 11th Doctor and his friends, Amy and Rory, join a group of explorers on a Victorian tramp steamer in the Florida Everglades. I don't know what that is. The mysterious explorers are searching for the Fountain of Youth, but neither they nor the treasure they seek are quite what they seem. Guys, there's a freaking dinosaur on this cover, okay? That is all I needed to know about this book, was dinosaur. And I am going to read it. This is the one I'm most excited about. I really love dinosaurs, especially when the Doctor encounters dinosaurs. It's like the best thing ever. So yes. I also have Torchwood Exodus Code, which is written by John and Carol E. Barrowman. So John Barrowman wrote a book with his sister, and I am excited for that. Also, it's Torchwood, so that's pretty cool. And it obviously has Jack in it because he's on the cover. So that's pretty cool. That is honestly why I got this book. I'm like, Captain Jack is writing a book about his adventures? Why, yes, I would like that. So the book blurb for this one is, it starts with a series of unexplained events. Earth tremors across the globe. Women being driven insane by their scrambled senses. Governments and scientists are bewildered. The world needs Torchwood, but there's not much of Torchwood left. Captain Jack Harkness has tracked the problem to its source, a village in Peru, where he's uncovered evidence of an alien involvement. In Cardiff, Gwen Cooper has discovered something alien and somehow connected to Jack. If the world is going to be restored, she has to warn him, but she's quickly becoming a victim of the madness Chew. I'm not gonna lie, I mostly got this book for who wrote it. But also, I don't own any Torchwood books yet. This is my first Torchwood book, so that's a little bit weird because that show's pretty awesome. I mean, not as good as Doctor Who or the Sarah Jane Adventures, but it's like my third favorite Doctor Who related show. Although K9 and Company, but that's only like one episode. Anyway, I love Torchwood. That's what I'm saying. I also picked up Matilda by Roald Dahl, which I don't actually own, which is a little bit weird because it is one of my favorite Roald Dahl stories. I mean, mostly we had the VHS when I was little and not the book, so I watched the movie over and over again. But I love Matilda. She's this girl who reads a lot. Like, a lot. And she develops telekinetic powers where she can move objects with her mind. And I loved Matilda as a child so much. And even as an adult, I still love Matilda. So I am really excited to have this book and finally add it to my collection officially. Maybe it's like 20 years a little late than it should have been, but you know, I love it. I also got A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I got this one as library book sale for like dime, which is honestly all I think this book is about worth. I don't understand why people are obsessed with this book. I am on page 80 and I'm pretty much just done with it at this point. So the main character in this, her name is Meg, and her dad has vanished and left her and her family alone. And then her brother is like this super genius, and he's like a 5-year-old kid, and she's like 10 or something. And basically the brother drags her along on this adventure through space and everything to find their dad. And I'm not loving Meg in this book. She's the main character, but she doesn't make any decisions on her own, which is super frustrating. Like, this world is really well thought out and imagined and stuff, but I can't stand Meg as a character. I can't stand the fact that everything just happens to her. And I'm also kind of feeling rushed. Like, we're only on page 80 and I'm not satisfied in this world. It's kind of like when you're eating at a restaurant and you get really into a food and it tastes good, and then they want to clear the table before you're done. And you're like, I wasn't finished with that. Can we please go back to what I was eating first? Like, I am not I feel like we're getting teased with bits of this world, and I want to like sit there and revel in them for a bit. And the pacing's off, and I'm really, really frustrated by the fact that Meg is not making any decisions on her own. I mean, granted, I'm only on page 80 out of 198. So maybe she starts making decisions on her own, but from what I've heard, probably not. So this one's probably getting donated back to the library once I finish with it. I don't think I'm keeping this book unless something amazing happens in the last 90 pages. I've also added Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe to my collection. I actually haven't read this. I've seen movie versions of it, at least one movie version of it, and it's about this guy who gets shipwrecked and stranded, and he has to survive on his own on this island. And I remember there being tree houses, but that might have been the Swiss Family Robinson, honestly. So it's an adventure story and kind of a survival story. And so I'm excited to finally read this, maybe, possibly. I'm not exactly rushing to read Robinson Crusoe either, though. Like, I've had my chances and haven't gotten to it yet, but eventually I will. I also got The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I actually have never read this. I know some people are obsessed with it, and, like, feminist icon status of this book, so I kind of feel like I should read it. And then the blurb on the back is from the New York Times Book Review, and it says, "The Bell Jar is a novel about the events of Sylvia Plath's 20th year, about how she tried to die, how they stuck her together with glue. It is a fine novel, as bitter and remorseless as her last poems, the kind of book Salinger's Franny might have written about herself 10 years later if she had spent those 10 years in hell." So, this one I feel like is an intellectual book that I should read, so I got it, especially when it was only a dime. But I'm also not exactly particularly eager to read it because it kind of sounds utterly depressing, honestly. So, if you guys have read The Bell Jar and thought it was amazing, let me know so that I will kind of get hyped to read it. Otherwise, it's probably going to be sitting on my shelves for a while, not read. So I also picked up The Catcher in the Rye by J D Salinger. This is another book that I got for a dime, and it's one of those books that I feel like I should have read, but I never quite got to. There's no book blurb on this edition, so I don't know what it's about, honestly. I think this is the one with Holden Caulfield, and the fact that he hates everybody, maybe. I really haven't tried to read this book, honestly. But guys, if you have read Catcher in the Rye, please tell me what it is about and if I should invest the time to read this book, or if it's just going to sit on my shelf for a while until I decide to get rid of it. Okay, and then the last book I have is Strange Tales from Ohio by Neil Zurcher. My brother actually gave this book to me. He saw it at Half Price Books, and because I love quirky, zany history things, and particularly because we live in Ohio, and Neil Zurcher is this television personality that we grew up watching on the news when we were little, so I kind of love that. Like, he did these travel things where you do, like, one-tank trips to different parts of Ohio. So he's spent his time exploring Ohio. All kinds of strange and quirky things about Ohio. Like, here's a bridge that's crooked in Cambridge and why. And I haven't actually read this book, so I can't actually tell you what these things are. Apparently, there is a monument to a pig in Middleton, so that's a thing. So I kind of love going through these, especially when they're like small, short, little chunks to just read something bizarre and crazy. And there are things that are happening around me and where I live. There is my book haul for January through March of 2018. Let me know if you have read any of these books, or are you excited for me to review any of these so that, I'll do this first probably. As always, the complete list of books that I've talked about is in the description below, and reviews for any of these books that I have done will also be linked in the description. So peace out, I love you guys, and keep reading. Bye!